So in Parshat Vayetze, which we've been studying diligently, Perek Chav Chet, we saw a few ideas about this notion that Yaakov Avinu is surprised that he is in the house of Hashem. He's at the gateway of Shemayim. And last we tried to see a few different approaches in the various commentators to how to understand what this means. I mean, how did he go to a place and not know where he was? Was it nondescript? Was he not aware of it? So we saw a few of the approaches. All of them that the Mefarshim come up with are really using the source material of the Medrash, trying to understand how did Chazal understand this. And again, just methodologically, Chazal have received traditions. Chazal have an interpretive tradition, a creative gesture. Those two things are at play. We don't know which one is at play at a given moment. And here's the rub. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not what we're after when we're learning Chumash, right? Did he go to Beit El? He went to Beit El. Where is Beit El? That's a question. So last we learned to try to reconcile the fact that Yaakov Avinu is surprised that he's at the place where he is, and the idea that he has gone from Sheva all the way up to Haran, and yet somehow he's having a dream on a place, right? So we talked about, based on the Gemara Masechet Chulin, one of the ideas is that he made a beeline for where he was supposed to go from point A to point B. When he got there, he said, how could I have passed by or passed through a place where my forefathers prayed? They davened, I didn't daven there. I have to go back. And he goes back. Now, what does it mean he goes back? Just that. He travels back. We saw one of the ideas maybe means he goes back, means from a cerebral, psychological, spiritual, prophetic perspective. Those are on a continuum. They're not the same thing. He has this divine revelation, and in his dream, he's back in these places. One possibility. Another possibility is, in fact, that he traveled back. The Medrash makes the claim about Yaakov Avinu that he, like Eliezer, Eved Avraham, traveled a tremendous distance in one day. Kfitzat haderech. He traveled a huge number of kilometers in there. It's the Middle East, so they use kilometers, not America. So a huge number of kilometers in a given day, and therefore they got to their destination very quickly. And maybe that's what's going on. Rashi had an idea that when Yaakov realized in Haran that he arrived so quickly, but he had not davened where he should have gone back davened, as soon as he made that decision, the land moved. That Eretz Hamoriah came up to Beit El, which is north of Yerushalayim. Beit El we know about on the level of Pshat from Parshat Lech Lecha, which tells us about Beit El as a place which is near Ai. So it's somewhere in the northern regions of not northern regions. It's in, today would be like the Shomron thereabouts. It's north of Yerushalayim. So it was waiting for him. So when he got to Beit El, when he came back down south, he got to Beit El, presto, he was at Har Moriah. That's his surprise. He didn't realize that Har Moriah had come to Beit El. That's one of the ideas. What we didn't finish last time, but I wanted to now look at more systematically, is the approach of the Ramban. The Ramban disagreed with Rashi. He didn't really understand this idea that the land is moving around, etc. And again, you'll wear your glasses to see how you want to filter what I'm saying in the way that I'm saying it. I'm just presenting, but you'll understand it on your own, each person on their own level. The Ramban says about Rashi, he didn't really understand how it could be. He quoted Rashi, but he didn't really, he didn't like his approach. And what Ramban does, as is his way, is the Ramban tries to analyze various approaches that the Medrash itself presents. So I'm going to sort of walk you through the Ramban. I weighed and measured. Should I put it on the screen or not? It'll be too distracting. I'm not sure. So let's see how we go. But maybe in the end, we'll cave and just put it up in front of you. But the basic idea here is Ramban doesn't think that the land is moving around. The geography, tectonic plates or something are shifting. That's how we understood Rashi, it seems. But But he thinks that the kfitzat haderach, when things are moving quickly, it means the people can get to a place in a very quick way, whether they're being teleported or whether their perception is that it went very quickly, right? We've all had that experience, I'm sure. We took a long lahavdil. You took a long flight, but for whatever reason, you fell asleep and you woke up. We're there already? We arrived? Oh, kfitzat haderach, right? Now, when you have a watch and you have a phone and whatever else, whatever gizmos you have, your screen in front of you on the plane, on the airplane, you know exactly how much time has elapsed. But when you're living, and you don't have those instruments, kfitzat haderach could be much more experienced, much more in a subjective manner, just for consideration. So he explains as follows. The Ramban explains as follows based on the Medrash, okay? He basically explains a couple of approaches. I want to give the attribution properly. He gives the first approach is that of Rav Hoshaya, that Yaakov listened to his parents at the end of Parshat Toldot. It says he listened to them. Vayishma Yaakov el aviv ve'el imo vayelech padana aram. That's chapter 28, verse 7. It says so. He went to Padan Aram. So what does it mean then that a few psukim later, the beginning of Parshat Vayetze, it says he's leaving Beersheva? So it means that he did listen to his parents. He did go to Padan Aram, but before he went there, he said to himself, before I go to Chutz La'aretz, I need to ask permission to see if I can leave to go to Chutz La'aretz. Who will I ask permission from? From Hashem. So how will I ask permission from Hashem? I'll go to Davin. So where will I go? I'll go to Beersheva, which is known to be a prayerful place. Avram Avinu plants an eshel, loosely translated into English and probably erroneously so, as a tamarisk tree. Chazal understand the eshel, it's chapter 21, Perek Chaf Aleph, as either an orchard or an inn of some sort that Avram Avinu sets up for Achnasat Orchim, etc. That's in Beersheva. We know that Yitzchak is in the vicinity of Beersheva when he has a revelation from Hashem, beginning of Parshat Toldot. We know he goes to Gerar. He's going south. He's going to leave to go to Mitzrayim, and he doesn't during a famine. That's in Beersheva. So he decides, I'm going to go to Beersheva, and that's where I'm going to daven. And the Ramban says what you may be missing in this story is that the family, at the moment when Yaakov leaves Yitzchak and Rivka's home, they are not living in Gerar. They are not living in Beersheva. They're living in Hebron. Why? And in Hebron is where the brachas are given. Why? That was really the place where they lived. They had to leave temporarily because of a family, went down to Gerar. But of course, they must have gone back home. How do I know, says the Ramban? Because in Parshat Vayishlach, when Yaakov will finally get home, back to the land of Canaan, after everything he will do on his road back home, where does he find his father back home? It says so, back in the land where he came from, right? Vayavo Yaakov el Yitzchak. It's in chapter 35. We're not there yet. Lamed Hey. Vayavo Yaakov el Yitzchak aviv mamrei kiryat ha'arba hi Hebron asher garsham Avraham v'Yitzchak. So, in other words, Yaakov listens to his parents at the end of Parshat Toldot. He goes in the direction of Padan Aram, but he doesn't get there. He stops, makes an about face, and says, how could I not ask permission to go? I should just leave. Avram went to Beersheva. Yitzchak went to Beersheva to daven. I'll go to Beersheva to daven. So according to this view, which will be disputed, but Rav Hoshaya says it must be, and Ramban's understanding of Hoshaya, he went down south from Hebron to Beersheva to daven at the family place of davening. By the way, Yitzchak is davening when Eliezer comes with Rivka on the camel, all the camels, the whole entourage, they actually encounter each other in that area as well, right? Yitzchak is Babi Be'er Lachai Ro'i. It's in that region as well. So according to that, when the Torah says Vayetze Yaakov mi Be'er it's to tell you they weren't in Beersheva when he left. That's the chiddush of the first pasuk in our parsha. When his father told him go live with Lavan, he had to ask permission. So where do you go? The place of davening, and therefore we see that he got the bracha. What was the bracha from Hashem now? Ushmarticha b'chol asher I'll guard you, right? I'll let you go. I'll bring you back to this land. And now what's the ladder, says the Ramban? The ladder that he sees is the ladder based on the view of Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra. What did Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra teach? The feet of the ladder are planted in Beersheva. He's in Beersheva. The dream is in Beersheva. And the end of its incline is where? It's as against the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Again, to you and me, we've said this since many times, it's obvious that Har Moriah is the place for prayer. It's so obvious because the Akedah happened there. Because the Beit HaMikdash was there twice. Because. But not for the days of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's only true that the Akedah happens there, which is a major event, but there were other locations that were special, Beersheba being one of them. But now Yaakov, in the dream, where he's resting, the feet of the ladder are planted there, and the incline goes up diagonally towards the north, towards Yerushalayim. The top of it is as against the Beit HaMikdash. And that's the opening, the aperture that the Malachim are going up and down. And the idea that the divine presence is specifically, so to speak, in this dreamscape, above Yerushalayim. Again, Hashem's not physical, but in the dreamscape, yeah? And therefore he knew that Beersheva is the Shar Hashamayim, because it's a good place for davening. But the Beit HaMikdash, that's the Beit Elokim. And therefore in the morning, he got up. You know where he was in the morning? He was in Beersheva when he woke up. And he got up from Beersheva and he went towards Haran. And he got there in one day. That's Kfitzat Haderach. That's Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra's idea. And that's what it means when Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra says in Breisheet Rabbah, the Sulam was standing in Beersheva. Its incline got all the way to the Beit HaMikdash. And that's when he said, oh, how awesome is this place? He meant this place, the place he's pointing to, so to speak, in his dream. Not where he is, but where he's going to go. And what's the stone that he's going to place when he wakes up in the morning? He didn't place the stone, says the Ramban, in the view of Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra, based on the concept of Rabbi Hoshaya. He didn't place it in Beersheva. He went to Yerushalayim on the way up to Haran, and that's where he had to put the stone. It's not where he slept. It's somewhere else. And that Evan that he put as a matzeva is therefore placed where? As against the top of the ladder that he saw in the dream. It's the marker of this is the spot that was the top where the ladder went up. What's that spot? That's Yerushalayim. That's the Beit Elokim. And says the Ramban, based on this view, that Beersheva is not Beit El. Beit El that he put the stone there, that he went back to later, when he told them in chapter 35, when he said, let's go to Beit El, we'll go there, we'll make a Mizbeach to Hashem who appeared to me, etc. He gets all of that. What is that? That is in the spot of Yerushalayim. And that's the place that he called Beit Elokim. And that's the place that used to be called, says the Ramban, used to be called Luz. And according to Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra, Luz is Yerushalayim, whose new name was Beit El. Who called it that? Yaakov Avinu. And you'll say, well, what about Ai? That was another place called Beit El, because Beit El just means the house of God. There was a place that had previously been called Beit El. When Avram Avinu arrived in Beit El, it was called Beit El. But Yaakov said, that's not the real Beit El. The real Beit El, or at least another Beit El, the main Beit El, is here, in this spot, in Yerushalayim. And he says this is not the Beit El Samuch La'ai, and that's the view of Rav Hoshaya, and based on and an understanding together with Rabbi Yosef ben Zimra. What we will learn momentarily after take questions and comments is the view of Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon, who disagrees with this view. And Ramban will bring his view momentarily. Stay tuned for that in a minute. But first, Karen asks, is there a medrash that the stone was later used in the Beit HaMikdash? Yes, and that's what we're going to see now. Right. The stone was used in the Beit HaMikdash. By the way, that doesn't contradict what I just said now, right? He put the stone there, and the stone is a matzeva. It's a marker, right? It's like that's the laser pointer to say this is the spot. It's right underneath the Shara Shemai. This is the Beit Elokim, rather. Yeah, that would explain. Cool. Yeah, so that's so the Shar is Beersheva, and the Beit is in Yerushalayim. Not here, but Yerushalayim. Shelley, question, comment. Go ahead, please.
I don't see why Yaakov would have to go and pray to ask God's permission to leave, because God came to his father when Yitzhak is about to leave, go down to Egypt to tell him you can't leave the country. God tells Abraham, do go, leave Haran and go there. So it would seem to me that your father, who's a tzaddik, tells you to leave, you're going to leave, and that if God will come to you and tell you don't leave, or God comes to Yaakov on the way to Egypt at the end and says, yes, go, I am with you. So I don't see why he at this point feels he's got to go pray somewhere. God will come to him.
Fair point. Maybe that's why we're about to learn another view that does not accord with this view, because this view says, well, he listened to his parents, but he made a side trip in the other direction to actually get permission. Why don't you just listen to what your father said? Good. Fair point. And by the by, wouldn't it have made sense maybe, why go back to Sheva? Why not go up to Yerushalayim? So explain that part, because in our mind, understandably, of course, it's Yerushalayim. It's like obvious, but it wasn't necessarily obvious to Yaakov Avinu. Yeah. And by the way, as we've learned also in the time of Beit Rishon in our Malachim class, a little crossover from Thursday, it wasn't always necessarily so obvious for all of Klal Yisrael either. It's various times. Witness the Mishkan and Shiloh, 369 years. Witness all these other locations, right? Till they finally come to Yerushalayim, etc. Okay. But that wasn't revealed yet. It says it wasn't revealed yet, so how could it not be revealed? Because it wasn't revealed. That's the answer, right? The people aren't Klal Yisrael's not in the desert thinking about that everything is going to be in Yerushalayim. That's as the Rambam writes in the Moreh Nevuchim. We see that the Torah writes, doesn't tell you the Makom Asher Yivchar Shlomo Shemo Sham. So how does Yaakov know? Well, according to the first view, right, Yaakov was the one who first planted the flag and said, oh, I know it's going to be here, the Beit Elokim. That's what the tefillas, they go from the gate that is Beersheba up to the house, so to speak, whose opening is over Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim Shalmala. Came the next view of the Medrash, and it's just interesting also methodologically. The Ramban, unlike earlier Mefarshim, is actually interested in presenting multiple views. We'll see what he does, whether he takes a side or not, but he's willing to entertain the possibility that there could be multiple interpretations that each have their own merit and strength and maybe their own weakness in a different way than Rashi. Rashi could do this in a very trenchant manner. We saw a number of examples through our learning over the past number of years, where he has this davar acher. I'll give you one idea, and then he'll say davar acher and another idea. He's quoting two different midrashim, and Rashi in very trenchant language trying to figure out, wants us to try to figure out, as part of the study of Rashi, what is this answer and what does it not answer, and what does the other answer provide that was the lacuna of the first one, and so on and so forth, right? And they're also left in attention. The Ramban fills it out much more. He tells it to you in longhand. He's delving much more into the Medrash, not just drawing out a few words that are close to the Pshat per se. He's trying to reconcile and synthesize in a bit of a different way. Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon disagreed with Rabbi Yosef ben Zimra. He says the ladder was completely in the Beit HaMikdash, and the top of the ladder's incline was at a place called Beit El, and he explains as follows: Vayira, Vayomar, etc. And he called the place Beit El. Rabbi Yehuda bar Simon says, Vayifga b'makom, he encountered the place, means he arrived at Har HaMoriah. And he slept there because the sun went down. Why are you telling me the sun goes down every day? And Rabbi Yosef bar Simon explains, basically, it went down unnaturally at the wrong time, right? The sun set very quickly, came upon him quickly. That there was a statement in Shemaim that Tzaddik came. And Hashem says, that Tzaddik has come to my house, to the place that is my area where I dwell, and he's going to go away without sleeping over. Later on, this will be a mitzvah of Lina. A person who comes to give a korban in Yerushalayim cannot leave the same, they have to sleep over that night in Yerushalayim. Right. So he saw, according to Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon, the ladder's feet are in that spot where he is in Yerushalayim, and the incline goes upward towards north, towards Beit El, which used to be called Luz, and that place is called Beit Elokim. And the ladder's incline, that's the gateway to Shamayim. So the Beit for the first opinion of Yosef Bar Zimra, the Beit Elokim is Yerushalayim, and it's the top of the ladder. And the Shar Hashamayim, the gateway to get there, when you go up the ladder, is in Beersheba. For Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon, it's the opposite. The Beit Elokim is, in this case, down below, and the Shara Shamayim is the gate to Shamayim is on high at the top of the ladder. And Har Moriah is a place that is Tov L'Tfila, he says. And Beit El, which is north of Yerushalayim, is also a place where you could serve Hashem, and that's the place where he put the Matzeva in Beit El, because according to everyone, it was as against the top of the incline. That's where he put the stone, facing the top of the incline, not the base of the ladder. And Rabbi Yehuda Bar Simon would agree with the Medrash that says in the Gemara, the Medrash that appears in Perek Yiddanasha and in Perek Chelek, two places in Shas, both in Masechet Chulin and in Masechet Sanhedrin. Yaakov left Beersheba, he went to Haran, and when he got there, he decided to go back to daven in the place where his forefathers davened, back to Har Moriah, and that's when the land jumped for him. So he got immediately to Har Moriah. Not what Rashi had said. Remember, Rashi said he only got to Beit El, but it's as if Har Moriah came to Beit El. No, here he went all the way back, and he came immediately, very quickly back to Har Moriah. And it could be that what they mean to say, Kfitz Aderech, Yaakov traveled very, very quickly. Right? So he came back and forth, and he arrived at this place by Yivgava Makom suddenly. He got there unexpectedly. So then the Ramban says, well, I have one more midrashic source I want to bring into the mix. We've learned this source together as well, and that's the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer Hagadol. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanus, one of the Tanaim, one of the Rebbeim of Rabbi Akiva, wrote a madrash called the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. I have it here on my shelf and my at home as well. And he describes the following: that Yaakov leaves his father's house, and as he goes, a be'er follows him all the way from Beersheba until Har Moriah for 2 days. Sound familiar? There's like a be'er mayim that's coming along with him. A well follows him. Now, does it mean it was moving like on a flatbed? Or does it mean it was like a tanker truck? Or does it mean wherever he went, he found a well? You can decide. And he arrived after a 2-day journey from Beersheba. According to Pirkei Eliezer, they were all living in Beersheba, and later would move back to Hebron, but here they're living in Beersheba. Therefore, he left Beersheba, and he arrived midday at Har Moriah. Hashem said to him, Yaakov, you have bread in your pouch that you're carrying. You have the be'er in front of you to eat and drink. Why don't you lie down in this place? So Yaakov said to Hashem, Master of the worlds, Ribbon Kol Olamim, I can't do that. There's still many, many degrees in the sky that the sun has to traverse. Then I could sleep in that place where the sun comes down. The sun's not down. So what happened? Why did he lie down? He had no choice. The sun suddenly went down. Hashem made the sunset much quicker. So Yaakov then saw the sun go down. Therefore, he went to sleep right there, and he took 12 different stones in that place. What is this? What are those stones that he found there that he put around his head? Says the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, these were the 12 stones out of which the Mizbeach had been built for the Akedah. After the Akedah, someone dismantled them. They were still on the top of Har Moriah. Yaakov picks up the stones upon which his father had been placed for the Akedah, and he puts them around his head. And the point here was supposed to be that there will be 12 tribes that will come from Yaakov Avinu, says Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. And of course, as we know, that's the medrash that when he woke up in the morning, the 12 stones had become one. When he wakes up, that's hinted at in the Pshat, in verse 18, in the Pshat, Vayashkem Yaakov baboker, vayikach et ha'even asher sam mera'ashotav, vayasem ota matzeva, vayitzok shemen al rosha. So on the level of pshat, Yaakov woke up in the morning, and he took the stone that was around his head, and he made it into a matzeva. And when you make something into a pile and you make it into one structure, it becomes singular. Therefore, the style of the language here is very simply, he took the stones, but it uses idiomatically, sort of like the way it's written in the Hebrew, as if he took one stone. It didn't literally took one stone. He took the stones, but it's called he took the stone, right? Like I took sand. It's like I took the millions of granules of sand. You don't say that. Took the stone and put it together. It's like you could say, I took, what's this house built out of? Brick. You actually mean bricks, but since it's a house, you say brick. He took the stone that was under his head. He made it into a matzeva. And he poured oil upon it. But the medrash, and that's what Pirkei Eliezer is picking up on, is that initially it said, "Vayikach me'avnei hamakom." He took from the stones of the place, and then now when he woke up, he took the stone. How did the stones go to the stone? On a midrashic level, Pirkei Eliezer teaches us very beautifully, the 12 stones that were around his head, symbolizing the 12 tribes, were now fused together, and they were to teach us what? That Shekulan Atidim Liot Goy Echad Ba'aretz. The Jewish nation would someday be one nation, a unified nation in the land. And that's Umi Ka'amcha Yisrael Goy Echad. Right? That's from Shmuel Bet. Yaakov gets up in the morning and he's very afraid. And he says, this is the house of Hashem in this place. This is the Beit Elokim. That's why he's afraid. Manora Hamakom, Hazeh, etc. And here we learn, Shekol mitpalel b'Yerushalayim is a very famous line. Ki'ilu mitpalel ifnei kisei hakavod. Anyone who davens in Yerushalayim, it's as if they're praying, they're davening right before the heavenly throne. Sheshar hashamayim hu patuach. The shar, the gates of heaven are open. According to the footnote, it points out Sheshar hashamayim sham hu. The gates of heaven are there. Upetach patuach lishmoa tefillah. And it's an open gateway to hear prayer. That's why people go to Yerushalayim to daven, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu has prayers everywhere. But that's a very, very special place. So therefore, that's why he's calling it the Shar HaShamayim. According to Pirkei Eliezer, the Beit and the Shar are the same place. The Beit is Yerushalayim. The Shar is over Yerushalayim, not over Beit El. And that's the Shar HaShamayim. Yaakov went back to take these stones, and he found that they were all one stone when he woke up. That's what he made the matzeva in that place. And then, Pirkei Eliezer, oil came down from Shamayim, and min ha-Shamayim, it was anointed, right? Because it's a bit of a mystery. Where did the oil come from, right? Where does a person who's traveling, like I say every year, like he's traveling with salad dressing in case he needs it, like the bare essentials. He's got some oil. So yes, they do travel with oil because sometimes they need it to light a light to something, or for cooking. But here, that's what he used. But Pirkei Eliezer, mina shamayim, the place was anointed mina shamayim. That's why he took shemen al rosha. So then the Medrash, Pirkei Eliezer, tells us the following, and this was what Karen was alluding to before, in case we didn't already figure it out from the Mizbeach and the 12 becoming one. Pirkei Eliezer goes further and says that what did Hashem do? Hashem, so to speak, with his right foot, stepped down on this stone, pushed it into the ground, and it went to the depths. And that was the place that the whole world was, connected to the whole world in order to fix it in the ground. He says it's like someone putting the keystone into an arch, the keystone that holds it all together. It's the middle one. And that's why it's called the Even Shtiyah. That's the place that's called the navel of the world. And from there, did the world develop, etc. Right? And this guy, this very phantasmagoric we're reading over here. Hashem's leg. What does that mean? His right leg, right? But that's Va'evan Azor Samti Matzeva Yiyeh Beit Elokim. This place that I made the matzeva will be the house of God, will be built here. And that's the idea here, that according to this rendering, when Yaakov wakes up in the morning, Hashem is, as it were, agreeing with Yaakov, correct, you chose correctly. I gave you a sign. Sign number 1, I made the rocks come together. Sign number 2, it's raining oil on it. Yeah. And sign number 3, it goes into the ground suddenly. Oh, it's still sticking up a little bit, but that's the Even Shtiyah. That's going to be the Kodesh HaKodeshim. That's the Beit Elokim, and it's at that time. And therefore, Yaakov Avinu becomes the one who fixes. He doesn't decide, but he's the one who discovers that Yerushalayim is going to be the Makom HaMikdash, according to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, at least. Yeah. Now, obviously, it's coded language so that the people in the Midbar, the Jewish people in the Midbar, and going into Eretz Yisrael, they don't know that. If they did, then they would know it's Yerushalayim. So the whole thing is obfuscated. Now, what the Ramban says at the end of his whole parish is, it's possible that everyone agrees one to the other, that each of his running back and forth was keheref ayin, it was kafza lo haderech, that it was kfitza haderech, it went quickly. When he went from Sheva to Haran, when he came back to Har Moriah, when he went back to Haran, but none of these midrashim agrees with Rashi that Har Moriah somehow moved to Beit El. And the Ramban leaves it at that. Doesn't tell you, oh, this is the right way, or this is really what happened. What he's trying to do is to try to explain the midrashim using the pshat. Obviously, the midrashim do is to try to show you the bridge. So, how did the midrashim get there from the pshat? But to show you different points of view, he gave us 3 different views: 2 from the Medrash Rabbah, and 1 from Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, which is all in addition to what Rashi had quoted from the Gemara about him going and coming back, etc. When we get to Pasuk Yud Chet, though, the point is Yaakov woke up, he took this stone which was underneath his head, he made it into a matzeva, and he put Vayitzok Shemen al Rosha. According to most of the views, this place is Yerushalayim. But at least one of the views says, this is somehow connected that to another place called Beit El, which is north of Yerushalayim. And that's the place where he is, and that's the place of Beit El, and that's the place he goes back to, right? Vayikra Shem Makom Beit El, v'ulam luz Shem Ha'ir La Rishona. That's the what he sees, what he chooses, and the place originally was called was Luz. Yeah. Vayidai Yaakov neder lemor miyeh Elokim imadi ushmani baderech hazeh asher nochi oleich v'natan lechem lechol beged lilbosh v'shavti v'shlom Beit Avi v'yashem li le'Elokim. Va'evan hazod asher samti matziva yiyeh Beit Elokim v'chol asher titein li aser asrenu lach. Here, Yaakov makes a neder, a personal commitment, a vow. It's, you could say, his nasa v'nishma in a certain way. What's interesting is that I think, on the face of it, it certainly looks conditional. The word im here sounds like, if God will be with me and do A, B, C, D for me, then I will do E, F, G, H. Sounds that way. Madi, right? And he'll take care of me, and he'll give me the bare essentials. I want to be, to be guarded, and give me bread and basic clothing to wear, right? Then I will come back. Sounds like an if then, right? And if I come back b'shalom to Beit Avi, b'shalom, Rashi points out, means without sins, because he knows that that's the real danger where he's going, i.e., I shouldn't learn from Lavan, right? Vaya Hashem li le'Elokim. What side of the ledger is that on? Is that on the if side, or is that on the then side? Rashi wants to guide us. Vaya Hashem li le'Elokim she'achul shmo alai mitchila v'atzof shlimatzeil psul bizar'i. It sounds more like it's still on the if side. If he'll be able to not able, but that God's name will be above me from beginning to end. And how will God be unto me as a God? That my children will continue and not be rejected by Hashem, which is interesting, which is the promise that was given to Avram Avinu. Liot l'chad Elokim l'zaracha acharecha. So what he's asking here, according to Rashi, quoting from this earlier pasuk from Rashi's day, is he's asking that he also have the Birkat Avraham. Va'evan azot asher samti matzeva yiyeh Beit Elokim. Is that a declaration? Is that conditional? Right? Rashi makes it conditional. Im ya'aseh li et eileh, afani aseh zot. If you're able to, if you do these things for me, as Yaakov says, what's my intention? I will make this stone into a house of God. Literally or figuratively. Or my aspiration is literally to build a house here for Hashem, but maybe it'll end up aspirational in my day, and my children's children will be the ones to return in order to build it. Yeah. Also, the idea of the tithing. Whatever I get, I'm going to give back. Right? I'll also be tithing, be giving back, if you will, helping others and giving back to Hashem through korbanot, etc. I think Jerry and Tamar, I don't know if your hand is up, but I see you unmuted. So maybe you want to say something first, and then Helen.
Rabbi,
Jerry, Tamar first,
okay.
then Helen. Jerry, Tamar, did you want to say something? No. Helen, go ahead. I'm sorry, they muted themselves again. Helen, go ahead.
Which is center stage, the ladder or Jacob's pillow, or are they both connected as one connected to the other?
Connected.
So which?
I'm going to vote with
so
connected.
It's not. Okay, so we have to have both in mind as one piece, the sulam and the pillow, because we seem to be concentrating on the pillow.
Well, today I'm concentrating on the pillow because I did the ladder. We did talk about the
sulam?
ladder a lot in previous sessions.
Okay.
But the idea is the ladder is the physical manifestation using human initiative with divine intervention for a physical structure. It's preceded by objects that are themselves mundane, stones, that were placed for a very pragmatic reason, mirashotav, which I know is always viewed as he took a pile of stones. Mirashotav means under his head, but more likely mirashotav means around his head, meaning around himself, protect himself from animals. So it goes. But when he woke up, somehow they were no longer around him. They were fused to be one stone, which he interpreted as a sign that this is a physical manifestation that results from my dream. It's intrinsically connected, and it's going to be the marker. That's what a matzeva is, right? It's the marker of something that happened. It's the monument, quite literally. That's what matzeva is, right? So the stones that he took now became the monument. Why? Because he encountered what he encountered in the dream. Yeah. And now he wakes up, and lo and behold, this is what it is, right? Now, by the way, according to the Medrash, that it became one, he did wake up with it under his head, because it does. It says that he vayasim mira'ashotav. Rashi initially says he made it as some kind of like a little area around his head. So he was worried about wild animals. But then the very beautiful description, which is so beautiful and so rich and so deep, and a 5-year-old could already understand it, weren't all the stones fighting with each other. I wanted Tzadik's head to rest on me. So what did Hashem do? Rashi quotes this very beautiful idea. Miyada sana Kodesh Baruch Hu even achat, based on the Gemara in Chulin. Hashem made all the little stones become one stone, and therefore Vikachra Evsher Sam Mira'ashotav, when he wakes up, becomes the one stone that was under his head. The one stone, which is a very large stone now, right? Maybe a flat, long stone. It doesn't have to be a tall stone. It could be flat, which became one overnight. The 12 stones that became one, based on the Pirkei Eliezer, the nation fused together. Yaakov resting his head above them, etc., and that becoming the cornerstone. It's not really a cornerstone, because it's not part of a building. It's the central stone, the Evan Shtiyah of the Kodesh HaKodashim, of the Beit HaMikdash.
Rabbi, I have one silent group that is not being addressed, the Malachim going up and down. So where do they come into this big picture?
So a few sessions ago, maybe 2 and 3 sessions ago, that was our subject. Just to remind you, we talked about the angels, whether it was something about the structure of the universe, whether it was something about the different elements of history. Remember, we talked about different models, different mefarshim and midrashim that view those malachim in different ways. So the Rambam, different approaches. so that we sort of treated that already. So,
Okay, I have to go back to the to the source.
yeah. So
It's
we have to
just
go back
like
to the source.
there's
Anyway,
so many
we're out of time
so
today,
many-
but I want Jerry and Tamar, I think,
Okay.
once again, unmuted. So maybe they wanted to say something. I don't see them on the screen, but I see they unmuted. So anything you want to add?
Yes, actually, I started talking about this toward the end of last session. As far as the neder goes, there's a strong argument, I think, to be made, and it's certainly the way it appears to me, that the point of it is a neder. He is promising himself what he's going to do. He's not saying, God, if you do this, then I'll do that. He's saying, if I live, if God protects me, if he's with me, if I survive and get back to my father's house, this is what I'm going to do. That's how I read it.
A perfect coda for today's shir. Thank you. Perfect. Beautiful. Well, that is the function, in fact, of a neder. An individual is making a commitment, and they're solidifying the commitment through their faculty of speech, and sometimes through an object, that it's attached to, if you will, and it's a commitment. Well, this will happen. This is what I intend to do. And it's an aspirational neder, of course, as a nedarim could be, and everything that we'll see after this will really flow from this episode, this dream, this moment, right? And we'll have to get to that, of course, next time, because we're out of time for today. But next Monday, God willing, we will resume the shir in Mirza Hashem, the beginning of Perek Chav Tet, which we will see when we get together next. Have a great day, and look forward to seeing you again for this slot next Monday. No shir this Thursday. Don't forget, no shir this Thursday, but there is a shir Sunday for everyone who wants to join me here at Or Torah for the shir on Charvona Zachur Latov in honor of Purim Ba'alin Latova. Have a great day.